Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, and we're still in Seville, but we had a little bit of a surprise. So we did a little session with a gentleman called Andrew Stotter, and during that session, I decided to invite him to a regular slot. So we're going to call it Knots and Stots, just to keep it, a little bit
edgy.
A bit edgy, a couple of old boys. We call it a bit edgy, but Andrew's a man who cares so much. He's been involved with leadership and training and coaching and motivational exercises, and he's well known. But one of the things that he's been doing is he puts out regular messages on a daily basis, and also what he calls gobits, and they are very, very useful. I've been stopped in my tracks occasionally by some, and the rest I use, and I try and use them to influence how I'm dealing with my day, my family, my friends, and at work, etc. And one of the things that we were talking about, which we want to focus on, is why do people feel, or why do you as a customer or somebody experiencing a service feel that another individual feels that they are just A? And that's because of their attitude, the poor performance, a lack of logic or common sense. Why are people so apathetic? And it's almost as if they don't care. And when it comes to a head, Stotts, they just say, yeah, but I was told to do it this way. And then you say, but if you look at it and you think about it, well, you wouldn't do it that way. So why are you not taking some responsibility for the outcome? And I know you've got a 4-step rule, which is see it, own it, solve it, and do it. Why are we not making people feel that somebody cares about them so that they care in turn?
I think the biggest challenge for me is them feeling safe at work. I think that's really, really important. So I would take it back to, and it's maybe slightly tenuous, but that connection between, child and parents. And I think that's really important. So for me, if you are an overbearing parent and you don't really, you put too much safety and security around your children, they actually become very dependent on you. So they can't really think for themselves. They're not particularly independent. They're perhaps a nervous human. They're not particularly good at interacting with other human beings. If, as a parent, you are creating safety around your child by letting your child go and play and explore the world and see the infinite opportunities of the world around you, and actually expecting them to make mistakes, giving them the experience of making the mistake. And then when they make the mistake or it doesn't quite go to plan, within a moderately safe environment, and then kind of reflecting on how that was, that's where learning happens. And so if you take it back into the workplace, many teams that I work with, they don't feel safe to have a go. So they feel that if they do make a mistake at work, then they're going to get attacked by their leader, by the organisation, maybe terminated, dismissed or whatever. And let's not leave any room for ambiguity around that. I'm not suggesting that Chris, repeatedly makes the same mistake about the same thing over and over again. That's clearly underperformance. What I'm talking about is that I'm learning a new skill. I'm experimenting with something. I'm having a go. I'm trying to think, what would the organisation do? And it actually doesn't work out quite as I'd expect. And then it's fine, because you would want your team members to actually have the courage to feel safe enough to do the right thing for the customer. How many times do you sit in a restaurant where you knock an ice cream over? So you might have just bought an ice cream, or you might have just bought a cup of coffee, and then something happens and it's your fault, you're the customer and you knock the coffee over, right? And the big difference then is that, either the organisation replaces the coffee for free, so that's or they say, that's another £5 or whatever. Yeah. And too often for me, it's, that's another £5. Well, I didn't knock the coffee over, you knocked the coffie over, it's not my problem, I've already sold you the coffee, that's my, and that gives me a really bitter relationship. I see that playing out a lot. So, so a team member will basically, really stand their ground on a policy or procedure. I believe they stand their ground on that policy and procedure because they don't feel safe to actually challenge. And I actually believe that the owner of the organisation was in that environment at that particular moment. Of course, they would say,
take the coffee.
Take the coffee, have another cup of coffee, have another ice cream. They wouldn't hesitate to do that. So what makes the team member not want to act like the owner of the organisation? I think it's they don't feel safe. So they just feel that they're kind of caught within a sort of policy or procedure. If people don't understand, and we have policies and we have procedures that help us to run our businesses 100%, but those policies and those procedures are there for a reason.
Yeah.
If your team member understands why they are in place, it becomes much easier to make the decision.
Exactly.
If I don't understand why a policy exists, I'm just going, I don't know, it's just policy, sir.
SOP policy.
Yeah, policy. And that's not that. If I understand that by not following the policy, perhaps it's not safe for the guest, not safe for the customer, it's not, sort of financially viable for the organisation, then but if I have to, as a team, understand the why.
And don't you think, as adults and as we all become parents, you knock the why out of your children eventually, because kids will always say, "Why, Mum? Why, Dad? Why?" And then in the end you say, "Because I told you so." and it happens like that in the workplace, And if people understand the reason why something needs to be done, they're going to be better at it. But I agree with you, they also have the freedom for a little bit of common sense and logic. And I've been doing some construction work here in Spain, as you know.
Nice.
Okay.
Malaga, beautiful city.
Yeah, let's give that a bit of a buzz.
Go Malaga.
Go Malaga. But seriously, and they were doing some work, and I just said to the colleague of mine, I said, I've got to drive up just to make sure it's being done. Okay. Thank God I went back up, because they planted something right in front. You see right in front of where the garage is. And when I said to the young lad, I said, he said, "Oh, my boss, my boss, he showed me what his boss actually did," because I found out afterwards. His boss drew the circle to show him the size of the circle.
But he's done it in front of the
But he's done it there and put that one there without even thinking, well, how am I going to get a car to go up to the garage if I put a blooming tree there? Anyhow, afterwards we went through it all, showed them what to do, how to step it out and do distancing and everything. And then we got on famously, and then they did some other work which was superb. So it's showing them, but also verifying the reason why.
That is the absolute most important thing for me, because when people understand, that's mastery. Why is mastery? Because when I understand why anything is being done, and I think that the other big challenge of mastery, if I can be so bold, is that when I'm a fairly good juggler, I juggle kind of chainsaws and clubs and knives and all sorts of things.
But sorry, just to interrupt you there. You're not joking there either.
I'm not joking.
You actually do that.
I actually do that. Yeah.
Yeah, the man can juggle.
And I've been doing it since I was like 18, 17, 18. Like I was a circus performer, still a circus performer. But in kind of previous lives, big street entertainer. It was a huge part of my early, my early days. But so if you were watching me, I was at a conference a couple of days ago. So we were doing plate spinning. I also spin plates. And it's slightly complicated getting people to change, to obviously juggle chainsaws. They're quite heavy, and there's a little risk involved in juggling chainsaws.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. So you don't really want to be doing it. We had a bit of experience how to, but we sort of like dial it back and we do plate spinning. And it always frustrates people because this audience was about 300 or 400 people in Abu Dhabi recently, ATD, and I showed them how to spin a plate. There's 400 people, they've got plates on their tables. We did some stuff around count processes, but I can literally get the plate spin out, I can just literally flick my wrist, and the plate miraculously spins on the end of the pole, right? Yeah, it's just a flick. And people go, "Oh, that looks really easy." So that you can see them instantly going, "That's really easy," yeah. And then they're grabbing the plate and the stick in front of them, and they're trying to do it. And guess what? They can't. But what happens next is really, really curious, because at that point, they all then start accusing me of trickery or magic, or I've got a special plate or a special stick. Let me have it. I'm going, "No, we can have my plate, have my magic plate or my magic stick," right? Yeah. And of course, they quickly find out they haven't. But what it is, it's mastery. Because when I first saw someone, 30 years ago, when I first saw someone doing that, of course, I thought that was really easy myself. But then I tried to do it. I had the same journey. It was like, "Oh, it's impossible," right? But that's the same with absolutely any skill that you or I have, right? So it doesn't matter if it's making a coffee or pulling a beer or checking a guest into a room or, flying an aeroplane. When you watch those individuals doing those things, when you see it being done well, it comes back to why I understand why I'm doing it. I have complete mastery around that. And of course, I then understand. So when I watch, and they make it look easy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think that's where the challenge is. Because if I don't feel safe and I don't want to have a go at doing it, So I need to feel the safety around me to have a go at trying to do it. When I can't spin the plate, when I can't juggle the chainsaw, when I can't, make the coffee correctly, at that point, I want someone to just encourage me. Okay. So rather than go, "Oh, you're an idiot. Let me show you how to do it." Grab the plate again and spin it. Because that's where the problem is. I think too often, when a person's trying to learn something from a master, the master kind of forgets miraculously that they've basically been doing it for 35
and it's so easy.
It's so easy for them. They don't think about it. And then so the master, so as a mentor, I'm sort of swapping that word out. When we're kind of working with people trying to learn, it doesn't matter what the skill is, what the knowledge is, whatever it is in life, walking, flying, whatever you want to do. If you're trying to show someone else, you have to break it down into very simple component parts. So if I was showing you how to juggle a ball or a chainsaw, let's park chainsaws for a second, but if I'm showing you how to juggle a ball, I need to basically show you in very simple steps. So there's 5, back to my gobits. So I give you kind of 5 gobits. This is the 5 gobits you will be definitely juggling is 5 gobits. So there's 5 steps to juggling. What happens, what's very curious for me, and we do this as a kind of live, audience participation session, because I've taught tens of thousands of people to juggle in my life, but we can do about 300 at a time juggling. But what's always fascinating for me is when we're teaching people to juggle, the first gobit is relatively simple. It's the second gobit which is really hard. So the second gobit is where the people have a kind of a conscious experience about how they would like to throw a ball. Right? So what happens is when you then try to show them how to throw a ball in a different way, it sounds complicated, but I have to, if you're going to juggle, you have to understand that the way you're going to throw the item is going to be different to what you would traditionally done, what you've normally done, right? So therefore, your kind of unconscious mind then goes back to, even though it can see, it knows that that's how I need to do it. Can I get that? And I get the agreement. I know how to do it, but then when I try and do it, starts to do, the challenge comes because it becomes really complicated, because the old experience kind of takes over, right, and comes in. So then, of course, you get the same kind of stuff, and it's again, human beings love to blame failure on anything around them, the environment. So they'll blame the fact that, honestly, the amount of times I teach, as I said, tens of thousands of people juggle, always the same blame. I'm a girl, I can't throw, I'm too old, I'm too young, I've never been good with balls, I'm not good at this kind of stuff, and they start to look for an excuse about why they can't learn this. And it's like, hang on a second, guys, you can do this. Doesn't matter, it doesn't genuinely, trust me, if Stotters can do it, you can do it. So if you can see another human being, it doesn't matter if it's a golf swing, flying a plane, driving a train, whatever it is, if you see a master doing it, you are a human being, you have the ability to do it. Unfortunately, too many humans make up excuses and it stops them. So at that point in their learning journey, they stop. And at that point, when we're juggling, I kind of force them into, I say, right, guys, let's create a safe environment, it's okay, lots of encouragement, and we kind of push through the can'ts. We push through the excuses, we push through the blame, and then suddenly they kind of go, oh, actually, I can. And then they start to really get enthusiastic about it. And honestly, Chris, I would say 95% of people who do that activity with me, within 5 minutes, can actually go from 0 to hero, and actually they can juggle. And they're walking away from it at the end, and I say, and they're going, how the heck have you done that?
Yeah.
All it is because we've shown you a nice simple recipe. We've basically then encouraged you through that can't. So we've kind of really encouraged you, stood there, we've created a safe environment, we've not made you look silly, we've really just, it's okay when you're failing, we're failing fast, we're really kind of like constantly bringing you back. If they struggle at a stage, we bring them back to an earlier stage so they're more comfortable with it. And eventually they go, oh, I get that, it's really easy now.
Yeah.
And then they practice, and I said, the final step for me is just go and do that, literally for 30 seconds every day for like 5 days. You would be a master juggler.
And that's, like you said, you've gone through the encouragement there. Now, like going back years, people said, we want people who've got, I want to or I can do attitude. Well, lots of people want to do something. Lots of people say, I can do it. But what you really want is people who will do it, and then I have done it. And getting people to understand those steps is so important. Now, your messages that go out on the subscription, so the reason for this knots and stops is, correct me if I'm wrong, we can get anybody to look you up on LinkedIn and say they want to subscribe.
Yeah.
And then they will get the regular messages that I've been getting and I get.
It's all completely free.
Now, guys, girls, anybody out there, these messages do make sense. Maybe not every day, but they do make sense. And some of the things that I've got back, which I love, one of them is, you are the writer of your own story.
Yeah.
You know? So that came through on one particular day when I was dealing with somebody else who had a bit of a problem. And I just said that to them, and they said, "You're right. It's down to me, isn't it?" And little things can make such a difference to people if everybody else sort of cares about it as well. Now, a couple of others that I loved was, making comparisons can spoil your happiness. When everybody wants, you know, it's so important to be happy with what you've got and not miserable about what you have not. And if people, even in positions, in hierarchy, just because you see somebody in a senior position, if you don't actually know what they have to do 24/7 on the mobile, always getting, you know, problems that they've got to deal with, you know, having to compromise with their family, everybody's got certain balances. So, you know, making comparisons can really spoil your happiness. Another one, your perception of others is a reflection of you.
It is.
That is so valid. And a couple of others that I really love were, everything is possible, you just have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Which is what you just covered. And then, with trust, even silence is understood.
Yeah, it is.
That's what my wife tells me.
But it's so, those things are so true. You know, you don't want to. I've been lucky enough in the last few years to be flying, you know, in slightly more. You know, I'm turning left, let's say, when I get onto aircraft, and it's a nightmare. So I've literally travelled in all sorts of different cabins, right? You know, sort of really top premium, right the way through to economy. But the problem is that now, when you go to top premium flight, then of course you're kind of aware, and it's a nightmare. Because, you know, once upon a time, I would be so excited even getting on an airplane.
Yeah.
And now I'm dreading it because I have to fly business class. Yeah. You know, it's like, and I have to kind of check myself and go, what a pathetic creature you are. Because it's comparison. You shouldn't be trying to compare. You just have no idea about the kind of the things that other people are going through. So you just have to be, I think it's self-love, like, first of all. We loving ourselves, looking after ourselves, feeling comfortable, confident to have a go, being a little bit weird, being, you know, just really focusing on being human, I think is so important. And not the amount of times that I look at, I mean, I've done tens of thousands of sort of leadership assessments for kind of onboarding executives to organisations around the world, and the amount of times that we're having to face those individuals afterwards and say, we actually think you're kind of masking, and we don't want you to mask.
Yeah.
You know, we actually think you're not being who you are, Chris. We want you to be Chris.
Yeah.
We're hiring Chris. We're not hiring someone who you think
to be somebody else.
Yeah. But that again comes back to the earlier part of the conversation, which is safety. How do you make Chris feel safe enough to be Chris?
Yeah.
How do you make that barista, that guest service agent, that, you know, customer service guy, whoever it is, those brilliant justers, you know, which I hate that word juster, but, you know, how do you make those individuals feel safe enough to be Chris, to be themselves, to be the genuine human? Because that is where the difference is. That's where, and if they understand why they're doing it and what their role is within the organisation, then of course they have those brilliant interactions with your guests, which drives back to that, you know, I was telling you earlier, you know, that relationship with my dad and one of his clients, 70 years, that repeat business is incredible.
That's incredible. So listen, right, if we're going to do this on a regular basis, we've got to stop people who feel they're a juster.
Yeah, 100%.
And we want to encourage people.
Anti-juster campaign.
That's it.
We're the anti-justers.
So we'll have to get t-shirts and caps and everything else.
Anti-juster.
But seriously, the first thing they can do is they go on, they look at your LinkedIn. So they just got to look you up on LinkedIn.
Go on LinkedIn, and at the top of the page you'll see join our learning group. They click on that, they instantly become a member of the learning group. There's no obligation. They can go in, they can go away. We send out kind of gobits regularly on that. We obviously have a couple of other kind of channels. It's as simple as that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. So I encourage everybody to do it. And again, just to finish with a couple, I love these other ones. Play to your strengths. If you're not great at something, then find something you are great at. Yeah. Make yourself feel better. And the last one I'm going to say, which is what I believe in now, especially now because of all the things that have been happening and are happening and the challenges. So when people have when people have got to react, they do so differently. And then when they're under pressure, they do so differently. And people are running businesses now, they've got so much pressure moving forward. Excuse me. So everybody needs to understand this one. And I think, your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change.
100%.
And you've got to be part of that change, and it's so important. And so looking forward, regular exercise, looking forward to this. Stop the Juster.
Stop the Juster campaign.
Stop the Juster campaign.
Anti-Juster.
Anti-Juster.
With the anti-Juster.
That's what we got to do. Anti-Juster, because everybody together makes the community much better.
It does. Yeah. Give them.
Yeah, and respect people. All right, my friend. Listen, that was lovely. First one, so we'll do that, and then we'll do it on a regular basis. So the next one, we'll cover the weird human messages, and we'll explain what that means and why. And then let's see how many people log on and see if they're, if they've got the opportunity as well to experience what I've done. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're a star man. You care. And one thing I would say is, and I'm sure my wife, my daughter, my son, anybody who knows me, I've now met somebody who can talk more than me.
That's a badge. That's a.
I'll tell you that.
To see the
No, well done. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.